Well, welcome to another edition of Man with the Show. What we're seeing now is the new book burning. That's right, folks. I told you, and I keep telling you this, folks. They come for your porn, anime, manga. They'll come for everything else once they're able to. And they are doing this. They are doing this slowly but surely. This all comes down to the World Economic Forum on what they want to do, what these corporate elites want to do with the world. They literally want to change the world, a George Orwellian, Clockwork Orange, Elysium type of world that they want to put with them in control. They'll tell you what to wear, what to eat, what to sleep, where to sleep. You'll have nothing, and you'll enjoy it. You won't have it. You won't have any entertainment. You won't have this. We control everything, and your education and everything else. And the thing is that it's slowly starting to branch out. We need to fight now. Censorship is coming for everything. This is what the German Nazis did. This is what the communists in Russia did. This is what they did in North Korea and many other countries. And now coming to the United Kingdom, it's coming to France, it's starting to get into the West like a disease. Now, some of my favorite books, and I'll tell you, and I grew up with these, was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James the Giant Peach, Matilda, and many other books that I really, truly enjoy. And it's written by a gentleman named Ronald Dahl, if I pronounce his name right. He has been controversial in the past because of some of the things that were written in his books. And of course, he did make some changes, and this was many years ago. Many, many years ago. But see, the one thing about it is, and I'll tell you straight out, is you can't sit there and take something that was written by someone and change the writings because you don't agree with what he wrote. And when you look at it, we'll take this off Deadline. UK PM Rishi Sunak, Salman Rushdie, and more joined in the criticism of the change to the Ronald Dahl books. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has joined in the criticism of changes made to the classic works by Ronald Dahl, which came to light over the weekend. Titles like James and the Giant Peach, The BFG, Matilda, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory have been altered by modifying words that now they deem offensive. Publisher Puffin Books and imprint of Penguin Books, who also is one of the distributors of comic books today, I think Marvel and DC, said the edits were made so that stories can continue to be enjoyed by all today. Sunak's official spokesman told local media, when it comes to our rich variety of literary heritage, the Prime Minister agrees with the BFG that we shouldn't gobble funk around with words. I think it's important that works of literature and works of fiction are preserved and not airbrushed. We have always defended the right to freedom of speech and expression. This coming from the man who's trying to push against freedom of speech. Also speaking out against the changes is author Salman Rushdie. Ronald Dahl was no angel, but this is an absurd censorship, he wrote on Twitter. PEN America's CEO Suzanne Nossel joined in the chorus saying, "We are alarmed at the news of hundreds of changes to be venerated works of Ronald Dahl." She continues, selective editing to make the works of literature conform to the particular sensibilities could represent a dangerous new weapon. His Dark Materials author Philip Pullman, meanwhile, told BBC Radio 4 that Dahl's books should be allowed to fade away rather than being changed. If Dali offends us, let him go out of print, he said. Read all these other wonderful authors who are writing today who don't get as much of a look in because of the massive commercial gravity of people like Ronald Dahl. Poet and author Dejani Chatterjee controversially told BBC Worldwide Service, "It is a very good thing that publishers are reviewing his works and that edits were done sensitively." Among the changes, the actor Augustus Gloop from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is no longer to resurface fat and is now described as enormous. Miss Trumbull, the villain in Matilda, is referred to be the most formidable woman instead of being the most formidable female. James and the Giant's Peach has had alterations to, in particular, when the centipede sings, Aunt Sponge was terrifically fat and terribly flabby at that, and Aunt Spiker was a thin wire and a dry as a bone, only drier. The revisions will now read: Aunt Sponge was a nasty old brute and deserved to be squashed by the fruit, and Aunt Spiker was much as the same and deserved half of the blame. As society begins to create more consciousness around mental health, words like crazy and mad were also edited. Dali died in 1990, is one of the UK most popular children's authors. Netflix has acquired the rights in 2021 and backed films like Matilda the Musical, which Sony released theatrically in the UK, grossing over 33 million. See, the thing is that you got to realize when a writer writes something in particular, he wrote it away for a reason. For example, and I'll give you a major example here, Augustus Gloop from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The reason he was referred as fat, and think about this from the perspective, is that Augustus Gloop was basically one of the 7 deadly sins, gluttony. It was his gluttony that basically was his fall, that basically he fell to his fate because of that. You know, many times, a while back we said, they wanted to rewrite Little Red Riding Hood and all that, and this was from overseas, in certain countries. And I said, this could come here. And then people will say, nah, it wouldn't on that. And see, this is what's happening here. Stories are written in a certain way for a certain reason. And worded the way it is for basically to educate and to scare kids. Yeah, it's going to scare kids. But in most cases, sometimes, you put a little fear in a child, he'll understand that it is wrong to do certain things. What was Augustus Gloop's crime? He was a glutton. He ate everything, and he continued to eat and eat. And you've seen it in the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movies. Each of the children had a specific sort of sin to them. And that's what Dali was trying to explain in his book. When you look at that perspective, that each of these were bad children. These children basically, and they were going to sell out Mr. Wonka for that everlasting gobstopper. Remember that. Remember that part on there. That was going to happen. Just because you have a small group of people that doesn't like the words, the way things are worded in books, it doesn't mean you should change those words. That made for the modern era. It's bullshit. That's bullshit. They continue to change and change. It's, where does it stop? Where does the change stop? Every 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, they'll continue to change it. And then suddenly it's no longer that story. It's no longer a story about a child who gets a chocolate factory. It'll turn into some freaking Marxist revolution novel that, basically that it loses all meaning to what the story is. This neo-Marxist bullshit's got to stop. All these companies that sits there that they want to change things. Think of it from the perspective of a painting. If you don't like an element in the painting, do you go over and take a paintbrush and or air it out from that painting? No, you don't. You're taking away the artistic expression of the person who made that painting. And that's the same thing with these novels. You're taking away the artistic expression of the person who wrote this story. Disney has been doing it for years. Now, you may say, well, I enjoyed Snow White. I enjoyed Pinocchio. I enjoyed Cinderella. But read the original text. They were dark. They were scary. Pinocchio killed Jiminy Cricket and was hung by a tree. I think, what was it? Cinderella's stepmother, they made her wear some sort of metal shoes that were heated, and that I guess she died or something like that. And there's many other stories. Little Red Riding Hood, eaten by the wolf. But these are stories that they were teaching you something. They were teaching you, don't go into that forest alone. Beware of the wolf. Things that could, in a way you say, like, things are not always free. It always comes with, these are many things that are taught in these novels. And this is not only children's books. They're going to start going after. I mean, they already went after Dr. Seuss because they didn't like how some of the things were drawn. But you got to remember, the drawings on there were just drawings, cartoonish. Disney and Warner Brothers have been doing similar types for many, many years. Now everybody says, wow, it's racist the way they make Asian people look. You ever seen how white people and black people are depicted in anime? It's not being racist. It's a cartoon. It is an anime. It is a character. Doesn't mean it's real. When kids look at the book, they like a little cartoony to it. If you made it more realistic, most kids won't read it unless their parents are reading it to them. That's why it's important that kids learn to read for themselves. And once in a while, parents should sit and read these books with the kids. Some of the books that are being pushed these days for kids and young teens should not be out there. Genderqueer, one of the biggest ones that shouldn't be there. Should have been printed. I have nothing against it being published, but it should not have been published for grammar school kids and middle school kids. Should not be. Because it's basically, there's sex in it. There is oral fixation in it. This is something kids should not be seeing or reading about. But like I said, this is the new book burning. If you don't like it, just change the words, change the story. And the thing about it is, this happens in the real world. You see movies where, the one thing you have to always remember when you go to a movie theater, based on a true story. You understand that it's based on a true story. Perfect example, Woman's King, which was trying to change history to make one of the worst African tribes to be more, that they were kinder, when actually they were one of the worst tribes, one of the last tribes to get stopped slavery at that time period in the late 1800s, even though slavery still exists in Africa. And then you have a Broadway show, Parade, which, and I heard this on several, if you haven't seen the story on this yet, because they've said, well, neo-Nazis showed up to protest on that. Now, I don't know who the protesters were. They said there's one particular, they were handing out flyers. But if you don't understand what the show is about, and they said, based on a true story, it's based on the murder and of a, 13 to 14-year-old child by a man who runs a factory. Man was found guilty, sentenced. There were questioning on there, so basically, he was checked by a grand jury. So even to this day, I think that they're still trying to proclaim his innocence. But the thing about it is, every time he gets brought up, they can't prove his innocence with the information they have. And, they call it racist because he was dragged out of the jail and mob justice was done. And they call it lynching. It was a mob justice. He was hung from a tree. But that was his original execution. That basically he was supposed to be hung by the tree, but the judge decided to change it from execution to life imprisonment. And a lot of people were calling him cheese pizza, that this was cheese pizza. But the way they said, he was wrongfully accused. The thing is, when you say wrongfully accused, it is your opinion that he's wrongfully accused. That's why you can't say based on true events or based on true history. Because basically, it's your opinion to the situation. Do we know the truth on it? Only we can go by the trial. And a jury of his peers found him guilty. The appeals went to guilty also. There was a grand jury. And you could say that it could be also racism to the other end, because they were saying that it was others that were responsible and that those were black. There was a black gentleman, a janitor situation on there. Was he involved? It's hard to say. Because a lot of the evidence that was brought forward basically sort of vindicated the gentleman on there. Other people think he wasn't vindicated, that actually was guilty. So you have to be careful what you see. And the media put it out to that perspective, that he was wrongfully accused. That's your opinion to the situation, to the play. But there are people out there that have the opinion that it wasn't. That's why we have freedom of speech here. And that's why books like this should not be re-edited. Why books like this should be cherished. Should be read to children. Unlike the books that they want to read to children to this day. So tell me in the comments below your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, share. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking that moment to listen to the insanity that is going on out there. Until the next time, thank you and bye-bye now.